The jungle went quiet, and that was how they knew someone was about to die. Fog wrapped the trees, closing in on every side. One Marine's legs suddenly buckled, nothing but a muffled crack, and his helmet danced across leaves spattered red. Chaos snapped through the squad, a dozen voices lost in terror, boots churning mud, hands fumbling for cover behind roots and rotten logs. Just a second before, quiet had weighed heavy. Now, every sound meant danger. Panic eclipsed orders. In the press of it all, Dill couldn't hear his own voice screaming for everyone to hit the ground. In this instant, the world shrank to eyes darting, lungs burning, sweat streaking through mud. If you've ever trusted your gut in complete silence, if your skin ever prickled when you couldn't find the threat, this story will stay with you. Have you known a moment when fear moved faster than reason, when your heart warned you before your mind? Right here, every Marine's instinct screamed. This was not a shot fired by chance. This was a warning, carved by a ghost. The question is simple. If you were trapped between roots and darkness, would you freeze, or would you run? Stay with this story. What they learned in that fog may be the only reason anyone made it out alive. Where was the enemy? The trees kept their answer. Hours later, memories tried to fight the jungle's grip. Dill's mind clung to Kansas, a wheat field stretching forever, the smell of his mother's bread, the Iowa sky. But here, roots tangled around boots and hunger gnawed at every rib. Exhaustion burned everyone raw. The squad moved without speaking, faces fixed and drawn, every shadow a new threat. The air choked with bugs, sweat, and the promise of another shot that could come at any time. Isaac, on point, suddenly tensed. He muttered about movement, maybe a figure high in the bows. Rifles rose, hands trembling. Nothing moved, the wind died, and every eye strained for just one clear sign. No sound but the hiss of breath through clenched teeth. No enemy revealed themselves. The doubt began to grow in the silence between boughs and branches. They moved again, but now a new question pressed itself into every step. Did you see it? Did you not? Or was the threat never there in the first place? Fog didn't lift that morning. Another Marine never stood for roll call. No one had seen, or heard, anything. Fear became suspicion, fear became anger. Dill walked the perimeter, knuckles white on his rifle stock. He saw it then, cuts on bark, 5 feet off the ground, in a line too straight for wind. He stopped, heart pounding. Was it just his mind? He looked deeper, lichen only grew to the same point, the moss above wiped clear. Insects avoided these marks. His mouth ran dry. What was this sign? He pointed it out, but the squad leaned away, nerves raw, faces drawn. Scars were nothing, they said, but Dill saw something alive in the pattern. But was it just the eyes of fear, or something more? As they moved, a glint caught his eye, a spent shell, perfect atop green moss, no mark, no print, nothing disturbed around it. How could it be left behind so clean, with no way in, no sign of movement at all? He stared into the undergrowth. If the killer could move without leaving a trace, what hope did anyone have of seeing him first? Night crawled in thick. Rain pockmarked the ferns. Thunder threatened, but the sound the men heard was softer, scuffed leaves, a shape passing just out of sight. Hank, on watch, kept his gaze skyward now. A branch moved above, too heavy, too slow. He turned his head, breath tight. Flashlight stayed off, fear invited no extra attention. None of the men slept. Each blink brought new hallucinations, slits of eyes in moss, the brush of something waiting in the next tree over. Near midnight, Dill wandered from his bedroll and found a patch of ground, sticky and black, utterly empty, not a bug, not a bird, not even the web of a spider. It was as if all living things refused to step there. Whispered questions passed through the squad, low as prayer. What could have cleared a patch like this? Why does the jungle itself recoil from that spot? Above them, somewhere unseen, a twig let go and landed with a whisper. Hank's grip on his rifle tightened until his knuckles blanched. Was it the enemy? Or was it the jungle keeping count? At dawn, the radio barely functioned. Static choked every message, a few barked orders, then a distant plea for help. Other Marine units called out, voices stuttering between bursts of static, then silence. "Where are you?" someone begged. Replies faded and were gone. Dill sat hunched by the set, feeling more alone than he ever had. Every command became suspect. Were they real? Did they come from friendly units, or from someone else, somewhere deeper between the trees? The squad argued, tension rising, over which direction was safe, whether to risk moving or hunker down and wait. The uncertainty made enemies out of brothers. Then, as Bert twiddled the dial one last time, a word broke through, low and urgent. Marked. 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 No other detail. Just those 3 syllables, repeated and fading into the static. Who, or what, was being marked now? Was it them? The squad's nerves were ragged. Night fell again, thick and crawling, and every sound made men reach for their rifles. Orders from command didn't match the situation on the ground. Someone accused Dill, quietly, then with rage, of seeing things that weren't there. Lonnie tried to calm tempers, but suspicion poisoned the air. Every Marine felt watched, hunted, caught in a silent trial. In the haze of light and shadow, Lonnie stepped away to relieve himself, humming a song from back home to prove his sanity. The song broke mid-note. A minute passed, too long. When the others searched, only his helmet remained, half buried, a dragging trail leading into thick vines where no man could fit. No one spoke above a whisper now. Not even memory of home was safe in the mouth of this jungle. If a single step could be the last, who could you trust, your friends or your own senses? Dawn felt false. Birdsong returned for a moment, as if things might be normal again. Someone cracked a weak joke about breakfast. Dill shook his head. Nothing about this clearing felt right. He moved through dew-damp leaves, checking the perimeter while the squad packed up. Mid-step, he saw it, a shadow stretching the wrong way, a branch bent up instead of down, scars in a perfect arc on 3 trunks. His stomach twisted. He pointed it out, voice shaking. The response was laughter edged with exhaustion and fear. "We're jumping at shadows now." Isaac snorted. But the laughter died when a branch creaked above their heads, in time with no wind. Every man froze. What if seeing the impossible meant survival? What if denying it meant everyone here would vanish, one by one? Dill tried not to hesitate. His theory, half mad, half brilliant, took shape in his mind, mapped with every step they took. He started risking breaks from the column, testing his senses. If a patch of earth was too quiet, the squad bent a different way. If bark felt too smooth, they fanned out instead of bunching up. Trust became the rarest commodity. Some men followed out of faith or fear. Others mocked the pattern, sticking to standard movements. Then, as they crossed a narrow gully, a single round tore through the air and missed Dill by inches, striking the precise spot he'd just explained to avoid. Frozen, Dill looked down at the muddy ground marked by his own boot. Now they couldn't ignore the evidence, or the terror that came with it. Every movement mattered. By reading the strange scarring and empty animal trails, the squad started shifting in ways that didn't make sense to anyone watching from above. For the first time, they left a killing zone untouched. A new hope flickered, follow the pattern, might live through it. But responsibility pressed heavier. Any wrong call could draw fire, could doom a friend. The dread never left. Bert, in the rear, voiced what everyone thought, feels like we're not just being hunted, we're being moved, guided, boxed in. Dill caught the meaning, a cold ache forming in his chest. What if the enemy wanted them to learn something for a reason? What if surviving was also a trap? The jungle watched back. Every breath was measured, every step a test. Who truly controlled the flow, hunter or hunted? They no longer waited for nightfall. Dill marked enemy signs with a stub of charcoal on his palm, teaching others to spot the subtle code: scarred bark for cover, bent reeds for shooting lanes, clean ground for lies in wait. The Marines began to counter, laying false signs, baiting the enemy, moving in unpredictable patterns. The rhythm of the jungle, once alien and suffocating, became comprehensible for a moment. The team moved with new confidence, but unease replaced outright fear. They pressed on and discovered, half buried under roots, enemy notches and carved lines identical to theirs, proof the snipers were tracking them as carefully as they mapped the snipers. Everyone realized something simple and terrifying: the fight was not for ground, but for the map inside each man's mind. Who would finish reading the pattern first? Dawn brought the promise of a supply drop, but not a single man relaxed. The jungle, somehow, seemed to hush all at once. No birds, no bugs, just the drumbeat of their own hearts. Far off, they heard metal strike wood, an unnatural rhythm the men recognized as snipers checking sights, setting lines. Plans flowed fast. Each Marine double-checked ammo, faces painted in sweat and smeared dirt. Just as hope flickered for a safe resupply, Hank, always near the edge, froze. His gaze followed the ground, a set of twigs, freshly broken, lined up to point straight back to their own camp. Not by accident. Someone wanted them looking the wrong direction, maybe all along. Time pressed in, they would have to act fast. But who led who in circles, the enemy or the hunted? Every shadow looked deeper now. The next step would mark the turning point. Every nerve was raw. The Marines pushed forward, setting their trap with Dill's mapped signs, bent branches mirrored, muddy prints faked, a trail designed to lure the snipers into thinking they kept the upper hand. Each move became a gamble. Speak too loud, move too slow, and the cover of darkness would snap shut like teeth. Gunfire barked as the enemy took the bait. Chaos spread. 2 Marines pinned the shape hidden just off the trail, dragging out a grim, shaken young man. Through broken English and hand gestures, something terrifying became clear: the enemy's own maps, cut into bamboo and bark, formed a grid far wider than the squad knew, a snare tightening around every U.S. unit on Guadalcanal. The news chilled to the bone. Survival was never just luck. Every step had lit up on a chart somewhere, marked and measured. The squad's own breakthrough was their only chance, but it meant risking all. The night thickened: who would strike the next blow, and who was truly surrounded? Wind raised dust over the clearing as Dill tried to radio in their discovery, voice guarded, words tangled with static. The enemy was listening: every click of the dial, every whisper, could tip their hand. He sent the pattern, sparing detail, a warning for HQ and any squad luckier or faster. Midway through transmission, the captured sniper jolted upright, shouting in code as distant shots cracked. "They've already moved," the interpreter gasped. At the same moment, the Japanese lines melted into the brush, vanishing in the blink of an eye. There was no victory. Only a race to pull back, shouts mixing with the blare of distant alarms as other squads scrambled or fell. The jungle inched closer, feeling smaller, tighter, more hostile than ever. Was the message enough? Or had the clue merely sounded the bell for a new round of losses? By the next dawn, sweat stinging his eyes, Dill stood before officers and spread the enemy's system, lines, marks, hidden codes drawn through mud and lichen, out across a table. The realization hit everyone: this wasn't just luck or skill, but relentless calculation. Each fallen man had been mapped in advance. The jungle's madness was, in truth, strict order. Recognition gave no comfort. The men who survived now knew which places had been safe only by accident, which escapes had danced on the edge of catastrophe. The weight of brothers lost pressed down, the price of every sign missed heavy in every stare. There was closure, but not relief. Dill's final words lingered, rough around the edges: how many more patterns haven't we seen yet? The silence that followed spoke of wisdom, but also the terror of what might still hide in plain view. By dusk, the jungle slouched into uneasy calm. Gunfire faded. The silence that terrified now felt empty, even kind, a bitter tenderness neither friend nor enemy. The surviving Marines sat on packs, not talking much, thoughts muddy with homesickness and loss. Someone tried to tune the radio, hoping for music, but heard only a dull hush. Dill sat with Isaac, staring at the lines of scarred bark, now no more than marks on wood. The air was thick, but breath moved easier. Flashes of Kansas flashed through Dill's mind, his brother riding fence lines, clean wind over yellow fields. He wondered if he'd ever see home again, or if home would mean the same. He stood, boots heavy in the faded light, eyes roaming endless trunks. The war had changed everything, what once was shelter was now suspect. What appeared as chaos had been perfect order. The last lesson was quiet, almost a whisper, survival sometimes hangs on a single overlooked sign. Dill faced the empty woods with his squad, words caught on his tongue. In that hush, the true enemy was not just flesh and gun, but the secrets men carried back from the deepest part of the world. Do we ever really see what hides among us?